Hello again. Welcome back to Tim's IT Straight Talk. This lesson is called A Foolish Consistency. When I was a freshman in college, I took English classes because I'm a writer and a reader. I've always read. And the teacher, this particular teacher who's long since deceased, was the first to teach me the old quote, "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds." This is the American essayist Ralph Waldo Emerson from his essay Self-Reliance. Think 19th century is what we're talking about. And I've always liked that. It stung when I first heard it because at that time in my life, I was really leaning into being a student. And so I was reading the dictionary and learning new words, and I would craft a 20-word sentence when a 5-word sentence would do, just because I was just so jazzed on learning and expanding myself. But sometimes that notion of a foolish consistency, and how many times might I find fault with some picky detail of something because it doesn't line up on how I think are. Well, this topic isn't about that concept. Other than the notion that consistency is also very good. It can be taken to an extreme. And specifically, I got the idea for this lesson as I was editing one of my Pluralsight videos, because I realized, I was storyboarding my PowerPoint. And I realized that I tend to use the same types of graphics and a lot of the same types of language. And I'm of two minds there. On one hand, I need to ask myself objectively, am I in a rut and do I need to mix things up? And sometimes that happens, and that's great. The other part was, I'd like to think that I'm doing my students a service by offering them consistency, and I'll tell you why. You don't have to have OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder to appreciate reliability, consistency, and repeatability. There's a comfort in that. I would guess most humans would feel that way. Thus, from a meta perspective in my training courses, I want them to be predictable and reliable. You're not there to listen to me speak. You're there to pick up new knowledge, theory, practical skills. And if I can give you as consistent of an experience across all of my courses, why not? It just seems totally logical. So I hope that if you're one of my students, I hope you don't feel bored by the relatively mundane way in which I present my PowerPoint. And some of the language I use, welcome to Pluralsight, I use different catchphrases a lot in my live and recorded training. All of that is just meant to help your brain lock tightly into the learning context, especially if we've trained together in the past. Because over the years, I've had many students who have followed my training throughout their careers, which is really rewarding. And it's all to the same. I want it to be where if you load up one of my courses, you know in advance what it's going to sound like, what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like. It's just you're ready to learn new stuff. So I think about it in my mind. Ideally, I want my learner to click into my courses the way that you'd click in an inkjet cartridge into a printer. You know how satisfying that is? Because the inkjet cartridge fits into the little housing so snugly and perfectly, and it just clicks into place with such a tactile and audio experience that you know that you've done it correctly. And the comfort that that engenders is what I think about when I put consistency in my training. So know that it's not laziness. It's absolutely intentional across the board 100%. And I think, moreover, this predictability can be looked at as a principle of adult education as a whole. I've mentioned this in the past, that when I was a kid, I gave a try when I was in grad school teaching middle school, and I was horrendous at it for many reasons. But one is that I wasn't yet really secure in myself. Number two, I grew up with a twin sister, so I didn't have a lot of experience with kids and that thing. That all changed especially when I became a dad, more important than anything else. But with continued life experience, I think at this point I do pretty well in a K-12 environment, but it's just not of interest. I like teaching adults, and I've said this before, and I'm sure I'll say it again. I like teaching adults because adults are no nonsense. They're generally speaking taking my courses because they want to be there. They generally speaking have some idea from fuzzy to crystalline what they want to get out of the training. And what I like the most, they're going to take what they learn in my classes and actually apply it in their careers so they can earn a living and support themselves and support their families and live a really great life. Eminently practical. And I'll probably die whenever that is, hopefully a long time from now, October 17th, 2023. I hope that what was I going to say? How embarrassing. Leading up to this pseudo-profound point. I hope that when I die, oh man, it was a good point too. Let me actually give me a moment of silence to see if I can pull it from short-term file storage here. Okay, I guess it's gone for now. So I'll just continue. Yeah, adult education and why I like teaching adults is because they put into practice what it is that they're learning in my classes immediately. Okay, I remember my point. Yes. When I was in middle school learning pre-algebra and algebra and geometry, and I was really stoked to learn those. Yeah, go figure. You can relate if you're a developer, I'm sure. But what a crappy job my teachers did. 201, probably because their passion was not in math education. So their heart might not have been in the job. And also they weren't student-centered instructors. They were looking to get us to pass the Regents exams, which were the standardized tests in public schools in upstate New York back in my day. I don't know if the Regents program is still around, actually. But yeah, I fault these teachers in a sense because they contributed to a delay in my appreciating math, because these teachers didn't take the math, or if you're in the UK, maths, or is that a European thing? Maths, it makes sense, plural. But anyway, they didn't relate the darn stuff to the real world. It was all just this nebulous, these formulas that we had to memorize. And why did we have to memorize them? So we could pass the test. And so the teacher could show that they've got this many passing students. That's all they seem to care about. That's something I could fire up some passion about, is teaching math at the K-12 level in a completely practical way. And I'd probably have to teach at a private school to have more curricular flexibility. Or maybe that's something I could do at YouTube. I'm sure that it's been done. With YouTube, every good idea has been done 20 times. It's just a question of who discovers it when and how big of a platform that person who discovers it has. But anyway, that's something to think about. Yeah, and actually the subject of math anxiety is important. Let me put that down as well, and then there's test-taking anxiety. That could populate some future videos in this series. But yeah, the fact that adults are so no-nonsense and they know what they're there for in the training and they know what they want to get out of it. Once again, we're talking about repetition and efficiency. I mean, I have a good friend who's going back to school next semester as a working professional adult, and that's what she's thinking. She's not only thinking in terms of transferring her skills into IT, but she's doing all the arithmetic now about figuring out student loan repayment and how can I squeeze every dollar or euro or rupee or pound or whatever out of my hours invested in this training, in this schooling, So it comes down to dollars and cents for sure. So the students have a very clear incentive. And so if they can know in advance, well, let's see here, I can only register for one class. This instructor I don't know. This other one, this Tim Warner guy, yeah, I've trained with him in the past. It was good result. I'll go back. And they go back and they lock into the training like an inkjet cartridge gets locked into the chassis of the inkjet printer. And they're buckled in and they have a predictably good experience, and that just keeps on building from there. That's what I'm talking about. Long story short. So guess that's all I want to say now. Let you go. Thanks a lot. I'll see you next time.